In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to use the TurboStats for basketball software to manage a tournament using our cloud drive in combination with our League Planner Pro software. We're also going to talk about some of the different scoring modes you could utilize to make the scoring easier or more complex if you want to keep track of minutes played. So first thing you want to do is start up the TurboStats for basketball. You're going to just click on the basketball icon on the desktop. It'll come up here, and if you don't have any data up in your cloud drive yet, or you haven't created your teams, first thing you do is, if you're going to import it, you could import your teams into League Planner Pro. That'll create all your rosters for you. If you're going to make them manually, just hit create a new team and just give it a file name for your team here and hit save, and that'll create a blank team. Let me just open up one here we created already. So you can put the team name at the top here, whatever you want to call it, an abbreviation, okay? And import your players. If you want to import them from MaxPreps or a website or a CSV file, you click on import here, and there's various file formats. If you're doing MaxPreps or Huddle, you can bring them right in. If you're on a college roster online, that'll work as well. So get your rosters built up here, and then you want to do is go into our cloud drive. And you got to put the teams up on the cloud drive so other computers in your event could share those files. So if you're going to be scoring on one computer only, you could leave everything on your main computer. You could use the cloud drive for backup purposes, or if you're working with our company to host the tournament, you might have to be putting the data back up on the cloud drive for us to be able to access and be able to manage, or any other company to manage your box scores and create leaderboards and things. So the first thing you want to do is highlight the teams on your local drive if you're the one who created the teams. So if you didn't create the team files, you're not going to have them on your local drive. You're going to see them on the cloud drive. So the first thing I'm going to do is upload these files up to the cloud drive. Okay, you do that one at a time. I'm going to just speed this up a second. Okay, so I have the teams up here now. Anybody who's connected with your cloud drive can access this data now and share it. We have to set that up in our office, so make sure that you give us time to set up for your event, register all your different computers that are running TurboStats. You need one for each court, and then we'll have everybody linked up. You do have a user ID, and that'll keep track of who's checking in and out these team files to score. So if you have a schedule for your event, you can click on the schedule button here, or if you just know the two teams that are going to be playing, you can highlight the two teams that are going to play each other, and then you hit download to score. If you want to have like a safety precaution, you could download all these rosters onto your computer. Just highlight them all before you start the event, hit download to view. That'll put a copy of all these teams on your hard drive, just in case there's a problem with the cloud drive or you're having any issues with your network. You'll be able to use the teams that are on your computer. You definitely want to use the cloud drive whenever you can, because the data has to be shared. So if you score a game on one computer, you want to put that database back up on the cloud, so everybody else that's in your group there could access the data that you already scored, so you could build a complete team database. So I have them all downloaded here on this device. You could do that on every tablet. Maybe you want to do that before you start the day, and this way you have that backup. But you want to go out and actually download the files that you're going to be scoring now. So you also lock them so that other users can't download those teams, and you have to make sure they put them back. So let's start off by going into our schedule. Click on the schedule button. If you don't see the schedule button, just resize this screen a little bit and it should appear. So click on schedule and pick the schedule for the event. This should be made with our League Planner Pro program. So if you don't have a schedule, you're going to have to manually create the teams, the games, one at a time, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit as well. So basically all you have to do is look for the game that's going to be on your court and highlight the game here in the list. It'll highlight the two team files that you have to download from the cloud drive. You could optionally just check these two files yourself if you want. But this is quicker, and you know you're getting the two teams that are on your court. Look here for the venue to see what court you're on, and you should be downloading the teams that are on your court. So what you want to do is hit download to score. So if I hit that, it's going to check out these two files, and it's going to bring them onto your computer, and it's going to be ready to score the game. Okay, and if you go back to the cloud drive just to look here, you'll see that those two teams are no longer up here. If you wanted to see the files that are checked out, see, here's your files right here at the bottom. Okay, and if you're on another computer and you don't know where your team file is, like if you're looking for team 7, you can hit show all, and it will show you who has these team files checked out. You can make the screen bigger if you want. So you can see AD1, that's my username. Every tablet should have a different user. Maybe the numbers might have something to do with the court number, but you can see who has them, and you can give a call over there and tell them to check them back. Okay, so I'm just going to open up these teams to score the game here. If you need to make any roster changes, do it right here in the program. If you're going to be adding player photos, that'll go up to the website or help you with scoring. You can hit add photo. If you have a team photo, it's real easy to be able to import from that photo. So let me find a picture here with some players on there, and let's see if I have one. Okay, I found a photo here, and so what you want to do is just select the player, and you could zoom up here and just crop the photo. It's real simple, and it'll upload to the team website for you automatically. And that's all you do. So you click on the next player and hit crop photo and just slide this over to the next guy, hit crop, and that's all you need to do. Okay, so once your team is ready, go on to the game screen, just click the games button here, and what you want to do is you're going to have games in here. If your league has been pre-set up using League Planner Pro, you'll have the different teams you're going to be playing. This happens to be a double header against the same team, same opponent. If you want to create your own game or check to see if there's new games on the schedule, you can click on the Add Game button here. And all you have to do here is look and see. It's going to tell you if there's a new game right here that's been added. So do you want to load the game for the Turbo Drive 7 please versus 8? You could say yes or no to that. And then if you want to create your own game, just hit browse and then highlight one of the opponents and then just hit open and create game that way. So you can manually create a game here. You can set the date and the time and everything. You can try the schedule, click on the schedule button here, and this will show you the schedule that is set up for this particular team. You could switch teams, but this is the current team you're in, so you were in team 7. So it's going to break it down for you here. So, but we're going to just highlight a game that's already been added to the list here, and there should be no players in the lineup if the game hasn't been scored yet. If you see all players here in the lineup, that game has already been scored. Look at selecting a different game in the list or creating a new game. You can check the date and the time at the top. Okay, so we got the right game here now, and we're ready to score. You can hit the live button up here or the live score button at the bottom. You're normally going to get a pop-up message about the game, and then you just hit OK, and you'll get right into the game to score. So if it shows like this, that's because there's two games against the same opponent, so it's showing you the schedule for the opponent, and you can select which game you're going to score. It defaulted to the first one, and then just hit players. So if you don't see the players at the bottom for the opponent, you just have to hit that players button. Then you'll be able to load the players into the game. Any players down here in the bench area, they won't get a game played for the game. So only move players up into the game who are playing in the game. Now right now we're set for the basic scoring screen. If you go into the preferences, we have 0 players in the game. If you're scoring a regular game and you want to do substitutions, you hit 5 or 3 if it's a 3-on-3 game, and you'll be able to drag these players in and sub them into the game. For this particular tournament, we're going to be just tracking basic stats. So we're not going to be dealing with minutes played and subbing. So we're going to go back to preferences and we're going to say that there's 0 players in the game. That's no sub mode. We also have some different display modes for scoring. You can click on this display button at the top. And right now we're on the option number 4. But you could choose scores only. You could choose scores and stats. If you're not caring about rebounds and assists, you just want to keep points scored, you could hit scores only. Okay, you'll see you'll just get stats at the top. They'll be a little bit bigger. And all you have to do is click on the player's name in a +3 or a +2. So it's pretty basic. This is the most basic scoring screen you could have up here. Okay, if you want to set the time for this game, go into preferences, go to game properties, and how many minutes per period. You want to set that. If it's 2 halves or 4 periods, you could set that as well. How many timeouts you have, and then you can just hit reset clock. That'll reset the time for the game. If the timeouts are changing in the game, you could always go back in here, and let's just say you're only going to have 2 fulls and 1 partial. Just hit reset timeouts. If you watch the scoreboard here, it'll update. Okay, if you need to make any manual changes on the scoreboard, you can double click on some of these values and then you go in there and just set the value manually. If you want to change the bonus to double bonus or clear it, you can click that as well. If it's on there, you want to clear it. If you're going to be using one of our display scoreboards, what you want to do is set that in the preferences. You click on the scoreboard tab. For the tabletop scoreboard, click on the small scoreboard. If you want it to auto start every time you enter the game form, just check this box here, and every time you load up the game form, it will auto load the scoreboard. Now the scoreboard is typically displayed on an extended display, and you don't want to have a duplicated display. So if you hook an HDMI cable into your computer and hook it into the extended display, if it's coming up as a duplicated display, you want to go into display properties here by clicking anywhere in the background, and under multiple displays you want to choose extend. You don't want to have duplicate on. And so what that'll do is that'll create 2 independent Windows displays, and so you could drag the scoreboard onto that display. So I'm going to have the small scoreboard. If the last button is checked, it's going to keep going to the same location that you saved it last time, which is nice on an extended display, so you don't have to keep dragging it over and expanding it. So let me click the small board. That's going to come up wherever the default location is. Now you could scale it if you want this way, or you can move it over, and to move it to the next display, you drag the scoreboard off the screen and you should see it coming up on your display window. It may go to the left or the right, and sometimes it's at top or bottom. However you set up your display and the in Windows, it's usually to the right. So drag it over and then go on to the other display now with your mouse. If you don't have the mouse, the tablet, you could use the touchpad at the bottom right corner of your Windows screen. Look next to the clock. If you don't see it and you want to bring up the touchpad, it's just like a mouse. So if you have a touchpad mouse, hook it up to your computer and you'll be able to use it. It'll be easier. So you bring it over to your other display and then you hit the maximize button. I'll just kind of leave it running here in a smaller version so you can kind of see what's going on here. This will be on the screen that's going to be facing the court. So if you notice, the teams are switched here. So we have team 8 and they switch sides on this display because it's turned around and it's facing the court. So that's all set up, and let's close out of this screen here. And let me show you what happens when you close out of this. So if I close out of this display, it's going to ask me if I want to save the position. So just hit yes if you want to save it. Now the next time you go into preferences and bring up the board, it's going to go right where you left it the last time. If it's on a different display, it'll pop up right over there. Okay, there's other settings here as well you might want to check. If you're going to have a running clock where you're not going to be starting and stopping the clock on fouls, so you want to uncheck stop the clock for free throws and fouls, and you don't have to have start for missed free throws These are just some options here that'll help you manage the clock when you're scoring. So if you have this option set and you enter a foul in the program, the clock will stop by itself. So if you don't want that, turn it off. If you go under autocomplete here, there's some different properties you could set for prompts. Right now we're in the most basic scoring mode. So you see all the prompts for assists, the prompts for rebounds are turned off. If you go into the display modes and you wanted to have those options working, you can go here and you can pick a more advanced display like stats and photos, and now you have rebounds and assists and things like that. So if you go into preferences, if you notice autocomplete is still off because we have no subs, and when you're having no subs you have to select every player from the list before you could enter the stats. So if we turn off the that option and we put 5 players in the game, and then we go here, autocomplete's turned on. So if I enter a missed shot, it'll automatically prompt for a rebound. That's how autocomplete works. So make sure all these settings are the way you want them before you start scoring. I'm going to go back to the other scoring mode here, and we're going to show you how to just score with our very basic scoring mode. And also the ability to put in rebounds if you wanted to, or fouls, so you can keep track of that. So that was option 3 on the list of scoring modes. And again, you can check autocomplete. If it's not turned off, you want to turn that off if you're having the option for 0 players in the game. Okay, it should turn off by itself. So basically these settings should be set up for you. If they're not, I'm just showing you how to access them if you got to make any changes. Now, if for some reason your HDMI cable gets disconnected from your machine, what happens is anything on the external display might turn and pop onto your display. So if you're scoring and all of a sudden someone messes with the cable, or something happens with your monitor and this display pops onto the screen, the easiest thing to do is just click anywhere on the live scoring screen, go back into preferences, and then go to scoreboard, and then check on the small scoreboard button again, and it says, do you want to save it the new position? Say no. Okay, do you want to reset the scoreboard to the default location? Say no to that, because the default is where it comes when you first get it, and it'll pop out right where you left it the last time. So that's if your scoreboard pops up over your screen or you got to restart it, you can go into the preferences and access that. So let's just go over some scoring scenarios. What you want to do is bring the players that are playing into the game. You could do it as they come in. You could just double click on them, or you could drag them up here. Just get the players who are starting. If you know everybody's going to play, you could drag everybody in here. With this mode, this scoring mode, everybody could be in the game at the same time, in a sense, where you could select any player from the list. You don't have to do any subbing. If you don't want to use the sub bar at the top, you could turn that off. Typically you want to use the maximize button though. If you click this, it'll maximize to your screen size, and this way everything will be larger and you'll be able to score more easily. So use that maximize button here when you're ready to maximize it on your screen. So let me pull the scoreboard up here. It's going to keep going from back and forth behind us. Let me move this over and set it up so the scoreboard will stay in position here. Okay, so we'll kind of get an idea what's happening on this board here. But basically, all you have to do is select the player and then click on a +3 if it's a 3-point shot made. Okay, if you want to track missed shots, you could do -3 or -2. So if it's a 2-point shot made, you could just hit +2. You see the scoreboard here updates automatically. If we want to start running the clock, you hit the start button. Okay, that runs the clock. If you want to change the clock, you got to stop the clock first. If you click in the clock, double click in it. I'm sorry, just single click on the clock. You'll be able to enter the seconds if there's some odd seconds you want to, as opposed to using the scroll bar and scrolling through this. You could also click here and enter like 14 let me see here. Well, if it's 14, you can't, only if you're in single digits. Like if it was 8 minutes, I could do 8 colon, and then I could put in 12 seconds. If it's double digits, you're going to have to use the big scroll bar to readjust the clock if you forgot to turn it on, or if there's any changes to the clock. If you're running the main clock, you'll probably be fine. You'll have the clock always on the right time. If you're just scoring and you're not running the main clock, what you want to do is make sure you set this clock before you do your subs. So if you're not going to run the clock, when the subs are coming in, just set the clock to the scoreboard time and then make your subs. I'm not in sub mode, so we can't show you how to do that here. But basically, highlight the player. If there's a free throw made, click free throw, made or missed. Okay, and that's all you need to do. If you want to do an offensive rebound, okay, if you want to do a offensive foul, very simple. And you can't highlight in this mode the event first and then the player's name. That won't work in this scoring mode. So make sure everything is unselected here. Select the player first and then made or miss. If you hit made, it'll be a made 2. Okay, if you click on +3, it'll always be a 3-pointer. If you need to make any changes, if you're actually scoring a game with the sub mode, okay, you could be in the events viewer here. This one, you might want to leave this on anyway while you're scoring. And as you see, as you click on the player, the last event will show up at the bottom. But there is an edit mode that does not work in this sub option here. So if you highlight a play here, you can't use this edit mode to make changes to the stats. What you have to do in this scoring mode is just highlight the player and go into the stats screen. And if you want to give this player, say, a 3-point shot made, you just click in the box and you click on that box and it'll give them an attempt as well. If you're going to give them just an attempt, just click the attempt box. Okay, so if there's any changes, if we highlight a player who has points here, let's just say we gave the points to the wrong player, I have to remove the basket from this player, highlight the player who I'm giving the basket to, and then hit the plus. And that's how you make changes. If your scoreboard happens to be off, or if you started the game late, you were having any trouble getting your subs together, and you just want to put the score in and go fix it later, what you could do here is go into preferences, and then you go under scoreboard, and you could manually come in here and change the scoreboard, and then just hit set scores when you're finished. Okay, it'll ask you if you want to set the scoreboard to that specific score. Hit OK to that, and now for the rest of the game, it'll have a difference between the player stats and the scoreboard. So if I click here and I hit a made 3, it's going to add it right from this point. But if you go into the stats, right now you're looking at Team 7 here, and if it doesn't show Team 7, you can click on this and switch between 7 and 8. Okay, and so if I hit update, it's going to show me the team totals here at the bottom. You see I got 12 points. The scoreboard says 14 because I manually added those points. Now, if somebody makes a basket and you're not sure who it was, you could just click on the player called team. If you click the T here at the bottom, it'll make that player automatically for you. And from that team option, you can hit a +2 if you want, and then you can go figure it out later when you go into the player called team. If you look at the events, you're going to have team with a shot made. You know that's not going to be right later. You can go fix it. Just go into stats, click on team, say you know Christopher has got that basket. So I'm going to go into team first, and I'm going to take away this 2-pointer made. And then click on Christopher, and I'm going to give him the 2-pointer made. So you can go fix the stats later. You could also just click on the scoreboard here, and that'll increment the stats by 1. So it's going to automatically create a foul shot for that player called team to increment it by 1. You could also, like I said, click on team and give that team a 3-pointer or 2-pointer. To get back to the shot chart, hit the large chart tab here. So now you click on the next player, hit +3. That's really all you have to do to score. If you want to set the possession arrow and keep track of that, whoever wins the toss the tip, you can click on the possession arrow for the other team. And if you want to change the possession arrow because there's a tie-up, the tie-up button is up here. So highlight the player who got the tie-up. Doesn't matter which team they're on, and click tie-up. And if you notice, it'll swap the possession arrow. If you don't care about tracking the tie-ups and the stats, you could just click on the arrow and change it manually. And so let's run the clock and let's enter some events here. If you want to do a rebound, okay, offensive rebound, you could just click on the player first, defensive rebound, foul. And if you notice, the fouls will show up on the scoreboard. If you don't have the players in the game as a sub setup, it's not going to show the number of the player who committed the foul or show you the player's totals up here. It will do that when you're scoring with the other scoring mode. You will see the player and how many fouls they have. If you need to use the horn, if you have a monitor or a TV that has a sound card, you can click the horn button and the horn will play. If you want to set an alternate sound card, you could buy a Bluetooth or another type of sound device and it'll work on that. And so that's pretty much the basics of scoring. After the period's over, let's just stop the scoring, right? Let's stop the clock right now and let's switch periods. If there's no time left on the clock, it'll manually pop up the periods. If you notice this little down arrow here, this box will open automatically when time runs out. If you need to change the period when time hasn't run out, you can click the period right here on the scoreboard. That'll ask if you want to change the period. You could do it that way. I'm just going to run the clock to 10 seconds, and you're going to see now that it's going to just end on its own. Okay. Now you notice there was no sound, there was no horn at the end of the period. If you go into preferences and you go under scoreboard here, it has turn off end of period horn. Let's uncheck that so the end of period horn plays when because we're actually using the scoreboard. So let's go to the next period here. Just hit next period, and you don't have to hit reset clock. It'll do it for you automatically. Okay, now we're in the second period now. Okay, so you could start the time here and then start scoring again in this period. Okay, when the game is over, okay, what you want to do is post the box score if your league is putting the box scores up online. So go click on the post online button and hit box web here. And these settings, if you're going to be using player photos, you have to make them once. It should stay the rest of the time. But if we're going to upload player photos, let's put them in there. If you're going to have logos for the teams, you might have to have JPEG or PNG, whatever you're using. Okay, if you're going back to the league site, you could have that set. If you're only doing this for one team, you might want to go back to the team site. And here should be the name of your league on League Planner Pro. That's also the site name that's up on the website. So when you go to view that league, it should be in this box. And then this is the game number. If you look at your schedule, what game number you're playing. If you're using League Planner Pro and you've imported the schedule, these will be filled in for you automatically. Otherwise, just increment the game number to whatever game you're scoring. This way the box score will be correct when you post it. So I have this set here and I'm going to hit create box score. And what it's going to do is it's going to prompt you just for the name. You're typically taking that name, the default name. And it will post the box score. It's going to go through and update the player stats as well for both teams. So now if I click on this button here and go to the website, I got this current box score. Okay, and I can close out of this here now. Pop up my team here. You see the box score is 22-4. Okay, that's here. And if you have a play-by-play here, you just click play-by-play and that'll show you the play-by-play. If you have player photos, they're going to show up in there. You'll have the team stat breakdown. And if you want to go back to your team sites, you can just click on this link here. If there's a logo, the logo may appear. And then you can go into stats here and you can see the individual stats for each player and each game that they played. You can click on the pull down list and pick one of the players, and every game you have a score for, they'll be up here. Let's see, if I have somebody with some stats in here. Let's see who has stats, and we'll just check this out here. Okay, so this is team 7 on team 8. We only have 4 points. Who's got them? Okay, Michael Ferroci. Let's see here. Okay, so he's got 3 points. So you see, this is the stats from this current game that we just scored. It's that easy to post them online here. If you want to go back to your box score, you go back to the home here, and your box score should show up right here. And as you're entering the schedule events, they should show up. Team leaders should show up here automatically as well. If you want to see the box score, just click box score. All this is built automatically for you. All you have to do is post the box score after the game's over. If you hit League Site, that'll take you to the League Planner Pro site. This is the main site for the league. If you click on Stats and you go on to All Players, you'll see the stats for the games you just entered. If you click on Leaders, someone responsible will update the leader report for you from the stats that you're posting. So that won't come up immediately, but it'll be just updated as the tournament's going on. Okay, so that's how you enter. You notice your box score comes up here automatically. If this particular game was here, it would show up. And if you want to go to the schedule here, and if you need to get your game numbers, if you don't know which game number it is, you'll see them right here. Okay, so we were doing game number 4 here. And so you want to make sure this game number matches, so after you post the box score, it'll show up here. And it will when we post this in League Planner Pro. So that's how you score the game. Now when you're finished, you want to exit out. You just hit End Live. It's going to ask you if you want to finalize the game. Hit yes to that. And it's going to calculate. If there's no opponent in there, it will add an opponent for each team. There is opponent stats. If you highlight opponent, it'll be the totals for the other team. Then you want to exit out of the game. Exit out and go back to the cloud drive now. And you want to put the 2 teams you scored back on the cloud drive. So you could just hit return all. If you only have 2 teams out, you can highlight them individually and return them. Okay, once you highlight one of the teams, your return all option's gone. But you could hit upload last, and that'll upload the last 2 teams that you played. Just hit upload last, hit OK to that. Upload last is only going to upload 2 teams. Okay, and they're going to go back onto the cloud drive. It's going to have the stats now that you just recently added. So who's ever on the next court that these teams are playing on could download those teams, go back to your schedule, click on the schedule event, and now you're going to go and you're going to get the next game. We were on court 2, so you go and you highlight the next game. There is no one, so I'll pick a different one here. And the teams will highlight, and again, download to score. Okay, and hit yes to that. And that's how you score. You're ready for the second game. Go to the game screen here. Highlight the game you're going to be scoring. And if you notice, these games there's a sample, and we were scoring some of these games. So there's already games in here. If you're going to create a new game manually, remember, click Add Game. Okay, if there's any games up on the drive that were added, you could add them here automatically, or you could say no to that. And you could just come and hit Browse and highlight whoever this team's playing. This is Team 9, and so we could say this is 9 versus Team 1. Okay, make sure you've downloaded both of these team files from the cloud drive. What you don't want to do is work with your local drives if you haven't downloaded them, because you won't have the current stats. So whatever game you're scoring, even if you're creating the game manually, make sure you download both teams from the cloud drive and then create the game to score. Okay, so you're all ready to go here. And if you notice, the scoreboard reset itself here at 16 minutes. It's got the new teams here for you. So if that's on the external display, it's going to manage itself and change the games as they come up. So if you're going to be doing highlights before you add any event, I'll just show you a quick way to do this. We'll add some players that are in this game. And what you can do is hit the thumbs up button here. So if you hit thumbs up and you highlight a player and then like a 3-point made, okay, it's going to, in the events here, tag that game with an H. Now I noticed that the horn button isn't here. So let me go back into the preferences and go to scoreboard. If that happens, I don't want to save it. I don't want to reset it. And the horn came back on. So I'm going to have somebody look at that to see if that's actually a bug and get that fixed. So if your horn is ever missing, just close the scoreboard out and start it back up again. And that's it. If you have any questions, visit our website and you'll have a lot of videos.